Good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Shallow. It's nice to see everyone. As Dr. Fu said, I am the current chair of the Industry Advisory Board for the Eric Friedheim Tourism Institute, and I get the pleasure of leading the panel this morning, and I'll introduce them in one moment. So I am actually a graduate of the THEM program. I graduated in 1994 and have spent the last 25 plus years in the hospitality industry. I am primarily a restaurant expert. What I do is run large franchise and company operations systems. So anything that has to do with a large brand portfolio is my experience. And so I want to go ahead and introduce the panels, and they'll go ahead and give a brief update of what they do in the industries that they focused on. So Alfredo, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Bob. Alfredo Gonzalez, graduate here of University of Florida in 1984. I've had an amazing career in tourism. Kind of started by accident with Marriott Hotels and Resorts in Orlando. Then I went to the destination management world. I worked for Broward County. I know a lot of people here are from South Florida. And so I worked for the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau for 15 years. Then I moved up to Washington, D.C. to represent the United States globally as a destination. And I wrapped up my career working for the state of Florida, Visit Florida, up in Tallahassee. I have a small company now, a private company called AG Hospitality, and my clients are Frontier Airlines on the airline side, and I also represent Long Island, New York on the tourism side for international development. And I'm sure that we'll get into deeper stuff in a minute. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Scott Taylor. I'm the president of Walk On Sports Bistro based in Baton Rouge, Tiger Country, unfortunately, Louisiana. I am as well a Gator graduate from the late 80s and as well kind of cut my teeth at Marriott. We just figured that out today. Started out in the hotel industry and room service at the World Center, which was the largest hotel in Florida at the time with over 2,000 rooms. So you can imagine room service on a convention week at the Marriott. So I decided quickly I didn't want to be in the hotel business, but I did love the hospitality business, mostly the restaurant industry, and I've been in that business since, and on the franchise side. So our brand, we franchise restaurants across the country of 75 locations in 10 states with a path of about 25 new restaurants each year for the foreseeable future. So happy to be here.
Good morning. I'm Rob Allday. I graduated here in 2003 and then moved to Park City, Utah and opened Abode Luxury Rentals. And we manage about 150 properties in Park City. And about 8 years ago, we opened up an office in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So manage vacation rentals and deliver amazing guest services.
You have to share. And what's your title? Ski bum.
Chief Ski Bum.
Chief, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm John Myers. I did my MBA at UF in 2000, graduated in 2006. So we had a good football run there for a while. So it was a lot of fun doing the MBA at that time. By show of hands, who is from the Orlando area? Okay, I got 1, 2. Okay, all right. Okay, Windermere. All right. Okay, all right. Olympia. All right. All right, I live right across the street. My son will be there next year. Just curious. I know there's a lot of you guys out here. So, anyway, so point I want to make is I'm local. I love University of Florida. My role is I'm the senior vice president of finance and analytics for Marco's Pizza. Yes, I live in Orlando. Yes, we're headquartered in Toledo, but Zoom is a wonderful thing. So are airplanes. So I've been there for about 3 years. We are a rapidly growing company. We've got about 1,150 pizzerias right now. We're growing about 100 to 200 a year. Before that, what brought me to Florida was I lived in Illinois, and it's cloudy every day. It's terrible. People are really nice, but the weather's not fun. So when I graduated with my undergrad degree, I packed up my car, I went to Disney, and I did the college program with my degree. And had a great time. I had a lot of fun and met a lot of people. And then I ended up going into finance and analytics positions at Disney and did about 12 years at Disney and then 8 years at Darden Restaurants, another Orlando company. And then now I'm with Marco's. So anyway, nice to meet you all.
And so I have the honor of leading the panel today. So I'm going to ask for the next 20 or so minutes, I'm going to ask a couple questions of our panelists. And then we're going to talk about trends and opportunities in hospitality and event management. And then it'll be free flowing. And then at the end, we hope to have some time. So if you have any questions at the end that come through our discussion, please feel free to ask us anything at the end of the session. So I just want to open it up, and Alfredo, I'll start with you about trends and opportunities, especially as one of the biggest things that impacted hospitality in the last couple of years has been the COVID impact, and we're coming out of that. And for the panel, how have you seen the impact from that in our industry and our sub-industries? And then what has changed, what's continuing, what do you see as happening as a result of that?
Well, needless to say, the pandemic was one of those things that don't normally happen, that we have a book to look back and say, what did we do the last time? I've called it the giant reset. We only had one before in 9/11. When 9/11 happened, we had to redo everything pretty damn quickly. Pandemic was different, but kind of the same effects. Everything stopped, but it didn't just stop here, it stopped globally. 2 years went by, you're students, and I know that sometimes what I say can be a little controversial, but everything you learned up until 2019, kind of forget about it, because the book on travel has been rewritten once the world reopened. That's hotels, airlines, shops, parks, attractions. Why? Because the conditions and the rules are different. One of my clients is an airline. You can imagine the impact of COVID on an airline. So one of the biggest trends or things that we see as an airline is the changes in the actual passengers. The people that are traveling today, and again, some people have never traveled before. So we, in the tourism world, need to understand that the profile of this passenger has changed dramatically. So has their behavior. And again, you probably heard over the pandemic, behavior on an airplane. People getting out of control. Why? Because they never traveled. They didn't understand that you have to wear your mask on a plane. They understand you have to wear a seatbelt. It's the law. Same thing happened at hotels. They would take over a hotel, destroy it. Things are changing. It's because this new traveler did not know what to do. We now have an opportunity to tell them what they should do. Our destination management partners are with us today, spend every day through social media educating the new post-COVID traveler on the buying side and the post-COVID traveler on the provider side, like me, like the airline or the hotels I represent. So Bob, some of the changes that we need to be very aware of is that the consumer has changed himself on how they behave, buy, research, and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So Rob, you have rentals in two of the most beautiful places I know, Park City, Utah, and then also in Wyoming. So what have you seen in those destinations, especially coming out of the impact of COVID?
They've been discovered. You saw in really May of 2020, as soon as people could get out, they were flocking to those markets, and hotels weren't even open then really. So it was all vacation rentals. And so not only have the markets been discovered, but then the opportunity to come stay in a beautiful house and rent it and have these experiences was discovered too. So we've seen just a huge uptick in demand.
Okay, very interesting. And one of the impacts I know, we've talked about the Great Resignation or trying to find staffing. And I know staffing at tourism, we'll get to in destinations is very difficult, but Scott, I'll start with you. It's like, I know the Great Resignation and staffing of restaurants, you all are growing, the brand. How are you dealing with that?
I think it's interesting. I love the change in the consumer, but the change in the teammate that worked in restaurants is changed significantly as well. And I think, unfortunately, many restaurants took their teammates for granted, overworked them, underpaid them, underappreciated them. And as an industry, the hourly teammate turnover is over 100%. So maybe the thought was, why get attached to them? We're going to get new ones. The reality is The great restaurants are the ones that have the low turnover. The great restaurants are the ones that have a culture of respect and appreciation and creating a path for those teammates. We've survived it because we had a great culture, and we doubled down on culture. During the pandemic, I hate to say the word pivot, that sucks. I hate uncharted waters, that sucks. Don't ever use it in an interview. But outside of those two words, just appreciating your team, being there, providing a path. I was talking to a student before this session who's getting in the restaurant business, and I said, what do your parents think about you getting in the restaurant business? He's like, well, I said, because they're wondering if you're going to get a real job, right? Because restaurants are not real jobs, but they are real jobs, and they're great jobs, and they're never going away. And you saw that during the pandemic when people couldn't wait to get out of their house and be around other people in a full service dining experience. So anyhow, I think just double down on culture, treat people right, and you'll be fine.
Well, I think you said that very well. Culture is the key. I think that's the number one word there. Scott's company has a great culture. They've got great team members. So I've no doubt you guys won through that labor shortage. For us in the restaurant space in general, really, I look at like three things happened with COVID. First, there was a shift in behavior. Consumers started, remember I'm in pizza, but talk QSR, talk whatever you want. Consumers started to purchase things differently. For pizza, they or really across the industry, people started spending more. Well, the reason was because they were at home with more people. So our average tickets started to increase. The number of tickets started to decline because, again, people were all eating together. The needs changed. Dinner started happening at 5 o'clock, where it always was at 6:30 and 7:30. But suddenly people were eating at 5 o'clock because they're working from home. They're like, done, getting food. The last meeting just ended. So dinner shifted to 5 o'clock. Dinner shifted to Thursday from Friday. So the whole week, everything just got a little bit goofy. And what's happened is, and then of course you look at the interplay between casual dining restaurants like Scott operates, or pizzerias like we have, or Taco Bell, or the fast casuals like Chipotle. They all sort of moved differently. What's happened now is things have normalized. Things have sort of shifted back to where they were before from a guest standpoint. So we've made it through most of that, I would say. There are some structural things that have stuck, like third-party delivery. Who uses Uber Eats or DoorDash here? Exactly, right? So that's a new thing. That's a big thing that blew up over COVID, and it's stuck. The labor shortages, the Great Resignation was item number 2 that I was going to talk about, and I think we summed that up well. The third thing is inflation. Everybody's hearing about it. So we can't get around the fact that in the restaurant space, 30% of every dollar you spend in a restaurant goes to pay for the raw materials. Another 25 cents of every dollar you spend goes to pay for the labor. The rest goes to pay all your fixed costs, and you got to pay rent and everything else. So what happened is when inflation happens, that 30% suddenly jumps to 40%. Well, you can't just not make any money, and restaurants operate on a 10% margin, give or take. We'd all love 12, we'd all love 14. But margins are slim enough that we can't just give it up. So pricing has been happening. So as an industry, we've been watching what's happening to our basket of goods. We've been adjusting pricing accordingly, but we all want to be, well, the smart ones want to be not on the leading edge of pricing. We want to let other people put their necks out and lose customers, and let us come in a little bit slowly, just adjusting just the bare minimum that's necessary. And if we can find efficiencies in the business and not have to take pricing, that's always even better. So the goal is to keep order counts or guest counts or traffic, whatever metric you want to call it, we want to keep that as high as possible and not lose any market share. So we're all focused on, we've all been focused on market share for the past 3 years. We always are, but the last 3 years have been a steady march. Got another restaurant guy back here. It's been market share, market share, market share.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting in that what did COVID do? Well, it accelerated, and it really exposed what some of the weaknesses were. I would say that everybody has a mobile phone and everybody has apps on it. And I can tell you, the company I was with, I think the app we had to have an app because everybody has an app. But what you found is consumers changed. And if your app was not optimized, now you're behind. And now you're leveraging third-party delivery, Uber Eats, DoorDash. Well, there's a couple issues out there, especially when you're looking at data analytics, is who owns the customer data. So if you're ordering through Uber Eats or DoorDash or somewhere else, they actually own the data. And if you're the actual restaurant or hotel or hospitality company, if you're using third party, you aren't getting access to your customers or your guests. You have, the other firm is, third party is. So what we found is by transferring those guests actually using your own app, you now actually have so much more data that you can use to optimize your business. So it's those pieces where you're like, oh my goodness, we didn't realize that. Who owns the consumer data, so you can then use that to make better business decisions, is a real big piece that came out of the pandemic. And so the other part is, I'll just throw it out there because I would work with franchisees or owners of their business. And let's say that I know Florida raised the minimum wage recently, and that's across the board. And so from a business owner, what we did is we said, we used different terms such as if the minimum wage or the wage of our employees increases $1 per hour, we actually have to take a 7% increase in the top line sales number to offset that dollar.
Which you can't do.
Which you can't do because you could price out your guests and so forth. So there's all these other implications that occur in the industry. So right now, the Great Resignation is raising, what wages need to be paid, which is great, but there are other implications that occur in those pricing, whether it's pricing, if you're seeing pricing going up at your local restaurant or at different hotels or where you're going, it's because they have to offset their fixed costs and to make it the same level of profit. So.
Yeah, an example is, so if you're a pizzeria owner, I'll keep going back to my company, and let's say you're running on a 12% margin. Again, if 10% gets taken up by increases in food cost, you have 2% in margin. Well, with that 2%, you're supposed to take care of your family. You got to pay the bank because you probably took out a small business loan to open it, and the bank needs to get paid or they're going to take your pizzeria. So it forces this inflationary pressure. It forces people to react to it, and they have to take pricing because if they don't, they default on their loan. So that's why we've seen these increases. Now, when something is a structural change to your business model, like minimum wage going up, that means it goes up and it stays up. Well, that's something you probably need to price for. When something's variable, like the cost of wheat or cheese or dairy or beef, those things fluctuate. You don't take prices every time it goes up because when it comes back down, you're going to be outpriced and you'll end up, your competition's going to be smarter and they're not going to do that.
I'll add just full service restaurants, and it's a different deal because you have servers and bartenders and bussers and food runners that for many years made a sub minimum wage pay rate, but they made tips. And so, $2 an hour, $3 an hour for a server has been a standard wage for a long time, but they were making $15 to $20 an hour when you count the tips they got. Yep. And so part of the wage increase to make a fair wage in restaurants really actually benefited the team member that didn't need the benefit. So the wage increase for the service staff went up in Florida $6, $7 an hour. It didn't go up that amount for the person living off an hourly wage. But by doing that, it changed the economic model of a full-service restaurant where you'll see restaurants with servers having a much larger station of tables or stations closed. There's some that have tried service charge to offset the deal that's not been popular, but it's something that, from a dynamic standpoint on full-service restaurants is having a lasting change. And that model, in a lot of cases, is going to have to change because you just can't. The 10% becomes 1% or negative 1% if you have to absorb that wage without menu manipulation or price or something to kind of, you got to take it all on cost of goods and you can't put it all on price on the customer because they don't get it. So It's different.
At the end of the day, we're talking a lot about the finance of our different industries, and you need to bring in the guest so you have the top line sales and then you flow it to the bottom. But the other part is you'll notice that we also speak a lot about data analytics, artificial intelligence, or machine learning. And what we're doing is we're adapting those technologies across all our sub-industries really quickly. So, and I know some of you in here are very focused on that part of the industry. So with that, just what are some examples where in your sub-industries that you're using data analytics or any type of machine learning or mobile app or just where you're seeing as the implications? Alfredo, I'll start with you.
Well, in the airline world right now, because it's just so different in just 3 years, when we had the giant quit off, when everybody resigned or we had to resign them, we had a big problem because we had giant demand. Demand for air travel right now has surpassed even 2019, 2018 levels. But what happened is we didn't have enough pilots, co-pilots, or flight attendants. One big problem we had is that we knew exactly who our customers were, where they live, how they travel. Now, there's two ways. The frequent flyer program, we got all your information. There's membership programs that you can actually sign off on. And of course, you have the general public that uses your website and you keep that information too. And everyone told us we want to travel, but we couldn't take them there because we laid off pilots and co-pilots. And it's not like, let's say you lay off a co-pilot today and you put him on hold. If a co-pilot is let go, even temporarily, to put him back to fly, he's got to be recertified. A recertification program could be 6 weeks, and God knows how much costs to us. But one thing about the analytics and the data, and I'm not that intelligent, so I don't even know how to turn my phone on without my daughters telling me, but we knew very basically what customers wanted. And we only knew that because the data told us exactly how they were behaving, what they wanted to buy, how they wanted to buy it, and who they wanted to buy it from. And this is my little plug to anyone that thinks that being a travel agent is not a good thing. Travel agents, for the last couple of decades, the number of them have decreased. What happened over COVID is that the travel agents are now more necessary than ever because consumers, the ones that know everything, that we have all the data, guess what? They also don't know everything that they need to know when they want to travel. So at Frontier, what we do is engage with travel agents, give them the power to share information. The information we share is very, very basic. Where do you want to go? When do you want to go? What do you like to do? And unless we know that from the consumer, that we have through data and analytics, but now the travel agent is becoming super important. Like it was in the 1980s and 70s when you had your favorite butcher, your favorite hairdresser, and your favorite travel agent. So you're in travel, you're in hospitality, don't ignore the need to have person one-to-one. Yeah, we'll use all the data analytics, but the human contact is going to be the most important determining factor in the recovery of tourism as we know it.
Who in here is studying AI? Anybody?
First of all, what is AI?
Artificial intelligence. Back there, we were talking about it earlier. So you think about in the hospitality space, what changed with the big shutdown, COVID? The experience people wanted when they went to a restaurant or a hotel or something changed significantly. And part of it was a personalized experience or a reason to be there. It has to be more than just the food you're serving. And so how do you take that experience, the data, how do you use artificial intelligence to understand you as a consumer, what you're doing, still personalize it, maybe with a human co-part, but somehow get that information, right? Because it can be done so much more efficiently if you build the programs to do it, then create a personalized experience. And in our business, in a sports bar environment, we were talking about, there used to be a platform called QB1 where you bet on the next play in a football game, was it a pass or a run? Were they going to kick the ball? And so there's things that people still do that. Now it's just fantasy, right? But how do you play something where you can gamify an experience in a hotel, in a restaurant, engage with me on a level of something I'm interested in? If it's not sports, it's food. Engage with me on food. If it's family activities, engage with me, but somehow through your loyalty app, through the things you have with your business, that all kind of comes back to like, I do these things, but I'm partnered with walk-ons because I'm a loyalty member and they know me and like they get me. And so I think engaging with that technology in your business is huge.
I'll add every organization that has access to their customer data is building a customer data platform. And that's a centralized data warehouse where you can track all the RFM stats, recency, frequency, and monetary, which is all the transactions, how much you spend, how often you come. You start to track that person, then you can customize your messages that you send to them through the app. So customization of your marketing efforts is the frontier that, I don't know, really kind of started to emerge about 10 years ago, but it's getting more and more and more adoption. You're getting it through a lot of your apps that you do today. They're keeping track of all that. So that's a huge frontier. And then I'd say on the specifically AI side, we've been experimenting with something that's kind of cool. It's a way to offset labor costs, but it's a what's the word? It's not a chatbot. It's actually like a voice. You're talking to a robot on the phone, and you don't even realize it. I mean, it's good. It's really good. It's conversational, and it's something that we've been beta testing in a few of our stores. But it's has a potential to offset labor costs as wage rates continue to increase. We can make the whole ordering experience more efficient. So there's all kinds of stuff we're doing.
Yeah, but and I know from Park City, this is very important. And I'm not anti-AI or II or whatever it is, but I think that if you put all that together, all the technology, we cannot forget the human interaction. We're in hospitality. Means hospitable, means giving someone something they deserve to have. So, yes, inform yourself as much as you want, walk backwards, learn how to talk AI, that's all. But never forget that you wake up in the morning after working 52 hours a week and say, you know what, I want to go somewhere, and you want to talk to somebody about that experience. If anything has come through COVID, it's not about the product. It's about the people and the experience. The reason that you guys went absolutely ballistic in Utah was because you were offering not the product, but the experience, the non-density experience that only you guys did so well.
Yeah, it's blending the high tech with the high touch of people book with us. People book, and we can see certain things, get all the information, but we have to reach out to them to find out. Oh, you're coming out, and it's an anniversary, so we're going to have a bottle of champagne when you arrive. Oh, it's this special occasion, so we're going to do this and go above and beyond and really hit them with the high touch. You can get all the information from the high tech, and it's great. It helps us with pricing, knowing when people are going to book, all those sort of things. But then to give them the high touch on top of that is really important.
You know what helped us out a lot during COVID is that one thing that we did right off the bat was find out through data. We found out that people, even through COVID, they still wanted to travel. And the number one thing they wanted to do was visit friends and relatives. And we happen to live in the state of Florida. The state of Florida has one of the largest bases of people from all over the world, mostly South, Central America, Caribbean. And remember, over COVID, Mexico was open. So we flew probably the highest load factors into Mexico. But we didn't know that just because we woke up in the morning and CNN was telling, the data was telling us, people that were going online through research and seminars and stuff that were telling us people. So we opened, during COVID, I opened 14 international markets. 14, all over the Caribbean, Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, St. Martin, Aruba, Turks and Caicos, all over. Guess why? People wanted to be with people. They wanted to be reconnected with their families. They've been away for 2 years. For God's sake, put me on an airplane. But see, the product changed, but what we valued more than anything else was that experience that people were going to remember and post it on a social media thing. That's what we need to remember. It's about the experience, not necessarily the product.
So I'd say one thing, all of y'all as students, we're talking about picking your major, and you think about what's, because remember, what's going to be big in 10 years? We need a bunch of vets. No, now we got too many veterinarians. Should be a lawyer, too many lawyers. This industry is never going to go away. It can never be replaced with technology. Technology, I believe, will help us personalize it and get more intuitive with our guests, our consumer, but it can never be replaced. And like I said, I think that showed when the world shut down. The first thing people wanted to do is go to a country that was open or couldn't wait to go to a restaurant, drink a beer, and sit with people. Or cheat, you couldn't go out with a mask. Look, I took it off. It's like they couldn't wait to see your face again, right? not the painted on face. They couldn't wait to interact and see your face. So this business is the most stable industry out there. It's only growing. The technology and innovation, I think, from the hospitality industry is still, I think it lags behind others, but there's so much white space for someone to get in and blow it up.
And
an
it's
engagement.
global, so it's
Oh,
not
absolutely.
just here.
Yeah, you can go anywhere in the world.
You know how valuable are American students interning in Australia? We were just talking about that earlier. They will do paid internships in Australia because we actually train our students extremely well in hospitality and the basics what people want. Remember that you're not looking for a job just here. You could be getting a job in Spain or the UK or Germany. So expand your horizons. You're not just dealing with the state of Florida or the United States. You're
But a
dealing
degree from
globally.
UF actually makes a
degree
big difference.
opens a lot of doors.
A lot of doors. You're not going to UCF. No offense to
So-
anybody.
some-
but like,
something
you're a UF. There's drop the C, big difference.
Are there
So-
other
something
schools
I'd
in the
add
state?
to that is
There are other schools, but yeah.
there is uncapped upside in this industry. There's no ceiling. You can be the next president of a restaurant company. There's no defined limitation. A lot of fields, there's kind of a spot you go to. You might come out of school making a great income, but that's where you are, and you just move up a little bit. In this industry, you have the opportunity to move around, take on greater roles of leadership, expand your horizons. Maybe you're working in a hotel, and then you're working the restaurant in the hotel. The next thing, you're running the whole hotel. Then you're running 10 hotels. Then you're running 10 states full of hotels. That could be your path, and I think that's exciting.
With that, I think that's a great segue. I had the honor of being in a Zoom class earlier this semester with master's and MBA students, and one of the questions they asked me was, what do I ask or what am I looking for during interviews? And I've had the honor of interviewing a lot of leaders and looking at a lot of resumes and doing interviews. So I wanted to ask the panel for you today, what question, what is a question you would ask? And what are you looking for from a candidate as you're looking at their resume and doing an interview? So John, I'll go ahead and start, and I'll work opposite this time.
Sure. So I'm in finance and analytics, so I am looking for individuals to fill those roles. And when I do, there's three things I look for: attitude, aptitude, and intellectual curiosity. So I want to know that somebody's coachable, that they're going to have a great attitude, that they're going to be that they're going to be flexible. If one day their job is defined as this, but now we need them to move over here, hey, no problem, I can do that. So I'm trying to tease that out in the interview. So I'll come at questions from all sorts of different angles to try to figure out if they're capable of doing that. And then I'll usually ask an obnoxious analytical question that, I probably shouldn't, but all I'm looking for is people's reaction to the question and whether or not they can think through it. So, it could be something silly like how many golf balls could you fit in a 747? I just want to know if that shuts you down, you're probably not the right fit. If you can engage on that and that gets you excited and you can think through a process, then that's going to, tell me that you're more curious. You like puzzles, you like to figure things out. My team is we're trying to solve puzzles. We're like detectives a lot of times with data. So I need people that are willing to do that. But then the attitude and the aptitude. I care less about your background. Now, the UF gets you the interview in the room, to be clear. But I care a little bit less about the specific training you had, and I care more about what you're capable of learning.
Our interview process is a little unorthodox. We just sit down and talk to people. We don't have any questions going in. We lay out the job expectations off the bat, but then it's just an open conversation, and we want to know, because culture, dovetailing off Scott, culture to us is a huge thing. And we've had instances where we're interviewing a person for position X, and we sit down and we talk for an hour and a half, and we end up hiring them for position Y. And it's way different than what they came in thinking they were going to do, and we've just opened up a whole nother opportunity for them. So if it's a good culture fit for us, we bring people in and we'll figure it out. So it's really not even about that position so much. So it's a little odd, but it's worked so far. Yeah.
I'd say the same thing. I mean, depending on the position, if you're in the restaurant business, if we're opening a new restaurant and we're trying to hire service staff, we'll intentionally hire a lot of servers that have no experience. Because servers with experience bring baggage, right? I've worked here. I was the head wait. Nobody cares. We want somebody who's nice. Do you have a great personality? Do you naturally smile? If it's someone on our support office on the restaurant, and Disney guy stole my thunder earlier, but like we ask, what's your superpower? And your superpower is like, what makes you unique? Like, what is it that, are you somebody that can make people laugh? Are you somebody that people naturally follow as a leader? What's your superpower? And then the second part is, tell us about a place you've worked where the culture was amazing and you just felt and you belonged. And then tell us about the leadership. And so, what are you looking for? Do we fit? Number one, we think we're cool. We have a good culture. Are you looking for the same things we're looking for? And then somebody who's going to be an impact player. Because if you're just here to hang out and you're not here to be an impact player, whether that's a server or in accounting or the supply chain guy, then you're not our person.
That's interesting. A long time ago, I spoke at another institution. I can't even remember the name. And I remember that I would go to this institution every year, and I had the graduate class for 1 hour talking about what they wanted to do next. And the funny thing was, one time, a kid started talking to me about salary. I said, well, okay, very interesting. Let's step out through the window. And I looked at the nicest car that was in the parking lot. That day happened to have a beautiful red Ferrari parked outside. So I said, okay, kids, everybody, let's go to the window. And we looked out the window, and I said, do you see the red Ferrari? And they're like, oh, wow, you're in the hospitality industry. It's not mine. And what do I look for when I'm interviewing a person? The passion. Do they have the passion for what you really do or want to do? Do you understand hospitality? What does the word mean? Are you willing to take the steps to get there? When I worked here, when I got to Gainesville back in 1979, I didn't have a lot of money. So I got a job at a very, very popular restaurant called the Brown Derby. Your parents went there. The Brown Derby was the #1 restaurant in Gainesville. 5-hour wait on Saturdays on a game day. But to get a job at this restaurant, you had to start as a dishwasher. Then you became a busboy. Then you became a helper of a waiter. And like 9-10 months later, you would get your waiter position. And then you make a ton of money. But the problem here is you need to understand, I made my commitment that whether it be food service, hotel, airport, event planning, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. You got to understand that you won't get that CEO job within a year. Eventually, you probably could own that red Ferrari. But in the meantime, there's gonna be a bunch of Hyundais in your history. But if you put in, like I always had checked, do you understand what we're supposed to do? People work so hard all year, and we in the hospitality have one opportunity to give them that 1 week to get away. We make their dreams come true. But how? By understanding their needs. So when I interview, I look to see, do they have the passion? Do they understand? Do they know there's going to be a Hyundai for a while? Those are the things I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. I heard a lot of really good things there, and a lot of times what we'll do is we'll have a phrase. So I heard, hire for will, train for skill. And so it's always about the person you want, and then we'll train the person in the role they need, if it's the right fit, especially culturally. The other thing Richard mentioned earlier today was do the research on whoever you're interviewing with. I know whenever I have interviews coming up, my LinkedIn system all of a sudden starts telling me I have a lot more people looking up my information, and that candidates generally will refer to something that's in the interview, and I know they've done their research. Whether or not they truly understand what was on there, it was more that they put the effort in ahead of time to research the company, research myself. And then when I actually am interviewing the candidate with a resume, I will actually dig down a level to see if they put something on there, what did they do actionable? Because I'm an operator. And so I'm going to see if they actually were a lead part of that, or what did they participate in that action versus did they just put something on their resume as, yeah, our company did that, I was involved, but how involved were they? And so those were a couple things that I'll dig into when I'm doing interviews. With that, I want to go ahead and open it up with some of the time we have. If anybody has any questions for anybody on the panel, anything that might be on top of your mind. So, yes, I see your hand up. Go ahead. I don't know if we have a. Here we go. I'm good.
Hi guys, my name is Ariana and I'm currently a senior majoring in advertising with a minor in event management. So I see a lot of overlap between the two industries and I kind of wanted to see if you guys can maybe talk a bit about how those two industries overlap and about maybe like inform me on some positions or careers that I can look into in which the both can come into play. Thank you.
And so, marketing and event management, correct?
Advertising.
Advertising.
Yeah.
And so, I've worked. I'll jump in first. I've worked with a lot of cross-functional teams, and a big piece is we work with advertisers. So, and in fact, the commercials and so forth. So, a lot of times is who are you advertising for, and knowing who your consumer is. And then taking that data back, and we're using it actually from an executional standpoint. So we talked a lot about data analytics earlier, and a lot of what we do is when you decide who you're going to go advertise to, you have to understand, a lot of what you're providing. What is your brand? What are the services you're providing? And are you actually advertising and marketing those to the right audience? So we do a lot of that.
I was going to say, for our company, we do an annual conference for our franchisees. And so our marketing department manages a conference, and it's vendor sponsors. So we'll raise $1.5 million to put on a conference. And it's current people we do business with. It's people that want to do business with us. And so it's creating a potential relationship, a co-branding opportunity for them to participate and sponsor our event, get in front of our franchisees, pitch their services and goods, and then as well, some potential long-term kind of partnerships with that supplier, whoever it may be, if there's a good match. Like, it's got to be the partner that you feel is equal to or elevate your brand, not somebody that pulls down your brand. But I think advertising opportunities within events, in any event you go, you're going to see this session sponsored by GE. That's all. People pay for that. That's not free, right? So as the advertising person, you're pitching that opportunity and what level of attendees in the room that you could potentially reach. So it absolutely ties in with event management.
One of the difficult things for us is executing at a level of what's advertised. So when you see a commercial, doesn't the food look great? That's the best looking taco or pizza or I've ever seen. And then at the end of the day, you're sitting in the restaurant or you're at the hotel. Is your experience matching what you saw in the advertisement? And so that's always inherent conflict sometimes of like, we have to be able to execute what we're advertising.
And truth in advertising. There was a restaurant brand based in Orlando that sells seafood that I won't mention, but they had commercials years ago that showed shrimp in their commercial, and they looked like these huge jumbo prawn shrimp. And you went to the restaurant, it's like, was that a camera issue, or are they using a 1620 but serving a 6070? So, I know from the marketing team is like, don't portion it correctly. Don't put more food on there than you're actually going to get. And if that's the size shrimp we use, that's the size shrimp that goes in the photo or the commercial, because you don't want to have a disconnect, not only on the service, but like, I thought I was getting that platter of awesome stuff.
Yeah, I worked for that brand. I know what he's talking about. So I'll take a totally different angle to your question. I think, so I work a lot with our advertising agency out of Chicago, and they would love to have people on their team that have both advertising skills and event management skills, because they are constantly, they are coordinating, they're herding cats to a lot of degrees, but they're coordinating events and activities. The agencies that are doing that, whether it's photo shoots for TV commercials or it's client events and activities, there's a huge need for that. In fact, our agency lost our main person who did that, and it was like they just imploded for a couple of months. It was it was rough because they lost their anchor that could really bring all that together.
Is there any question right here? Is there?
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking to us today. I really enjoyed what you guys had to say. My name is Jenna. I am a general studies business major with an event management specialization. And how did you guys incorporate AI as a COVID safety precaution without disrupting like the human interaction flow?
Well, you heard you.
Hold on, I'm so sorry. I know some of my students have class and technically we're past time, so if you all need to leave, it's okay. No worries. Go ahead.
Real quick on, I don't deal with AI. That's way above what I think. I'm all about personal, human, direct contact, but I do utilize people around me that do understand it. To the young lady that asked about advertising, I work for an airline that never advertises. We don't spend $1 in advertising, but what we do is we know exactly who our customers are. So I can bypass advertising directly through data and go to you, where you live, when you traveled, how many times you traveled. So, but then we actually take it a little bit more personal. Once I know who you are, I'm gonna go see you. And that's a very different angle to what a lot of companies do today, that they go spend a double page spread on USA Today for $50,000 for the weekend. And what I know we used to say was it goes from one reader to the birdcage. Instead now, if I can talk to that consumer and tell them what the benefits of my product are, based on the data that I have, I got a consumer that's gonna be buy and do the two things that I always say here, R&R, repeat and refer.
Do you think that's like more beneficial? Like you have like a consistent amount of customers? Like
So I'm gonna
reliable?
ask you a question. So you're gonna decide that you wanna go on holiday you have 2 weeks, unusual for the US. You're gonna go on a 2-week vacation and you're gonna fly Miami to Madrid, Madrid to Paris, Paris to Munich, Munich back to London and come home. You're gonna do it all online. You're gonna go to Expedia and you're gonna get your air, you're gonna get your hotel, you're gonna get your rental car. What happens when one of those segments gets canceled because of weather or a mechanical? You know what's called? Hell. What happens if you went to a travel agent and said, this is where I want to go? The travel agent gets a notice saying, flight on Iberia from Madrid to Berlin was canceled, but they have another flight on Alitalia. They'll put you on an hour later. That's the benefit of working directly with a human being. She's going to give you options. He or she's. Sometimes the system is not, because it's designed to give you one pre-packaged program. We human beings are not pre-packaged. We have the ability to learn, teach, share. So I like it. Is it an AI?
That's one term.
So anyway, but I'm all about the people. I always tell it's not the product, it's the people. A waiter at the best restaurant in the world gives you bad service, you'll never come back. If a great waiter gives you a steak that's not as cooked as well as you wanted, but the service was great, you'll ignore it and you'll keep coming back.
I think something he just said, like the restaurants, the word of mouth will kill you or word of mouth helps you. You can take the AI side and basically testimonials, the ones that love you, figure out how you tag that to your website and drive SEO with AI. So you know where people are searching for information about who's the best event management company that does this. And you've got testimonials that pop up on an SEO search. You can pay to have it done, or you can embed it and just tie that, whether it's PR or whatever it is, so that it's relevant where the person that's looking, where he knows you want to go, find it. And you can't, it still has to be the human experience, but there's a way to put it in your face.
Yep. Data analytics really leads to just operations and execution. Yep. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure it's okay. Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm a them major with looking for a specialization in AI analytics. I just kind of want to pick your brain. I just want to see your opinion on, do you see AI more or less as a threat or as like an opportunity to further expand like behind the lines jobs in tourism, hospitality, and event management?
So the industry I'm in, there's a company that does analytics, but they also sell pizza. That's Domino's. right? So they are all in on everything data. I mean, they spend way more money on their data and analytics and AI than they do on developing a decent pizza. It's not good. Yeah. Don't even get me started. Anyway,
We could get you started.
but there is something to that. You look at McDonald's has been innovating throughout COVID with their app. They're serving you with offers. They've developed a slick app. So I think we're calling it AI, but it's really, again, it's about touching the customer at the right time with the right message to persuade them, hey, come back to me. And with whether it's offer, whether it's experience, by the way, everything plays into the experience, right? So experience is the product and the service, and just it's the feeling you're left with. It's the price you paid for it. All that funnels in there together. So
I think you customize it too, right? So if you're an Astros fan, they played last night. We're sports bars. I'm going to hit you up in the daytime earlier to kind of like, hey, you excited about the game? Like it learns about you, your habits, where you go, where you eat, where you travel, and that, I think whoever the end user is with that information can customize the visits with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, big opportunity.
Dr. Fu. And so I think we're at the end of our time. And so I just want to say thank you all for staying extra time. Thank you to my panelists for being up here. I appreciate it. And the other thing I'll leave you is please reach out to any of us with any questions or anything in the future. We'll always respond back to you. And so, Dr. Fu?
Thank you very much. Thank you for students joining us, and thank you for our excellent panelists. That's very intelligent discussion. And again, artificial intelligence to serve us to be able to more personalize about the needs of our customers. So they are the helpers, not to replace what we can offer. So for our students, we have some desserts, edible stuff for you to enjoy. And at the same time, I also want to introduce College Dean, Dr. Michael Reed. If you'd like to say a few words.
Sure.
He's my boss.
So, yeah, never give a dean a microphone. It's a bad idea. I will not try to fundraise in here. I will tell you that you as students are really getting a unique opportunity here to speak with executives from the industry that you intend to invest your upcoming career in. Congratulations to you on being here. I also think it's really exciting to see the research that the students are doing and to have their posters back there. This is a reflection of how our students not only get to interact with the best and brightest from the industry, but also the best and brightest at UF, faculty members who are world-known experts on various aspects of tourism and hospitality and can help you prepare to eventually work with people like this. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much to the board members for being on this panel. It was terrific. And thank you for the microphone.